Hi and welcome. My name is Danny DeGroat, and today we'll be covering the administration of the ShoreTel system. This will be the first lesson, and in this first lesson we're going to discuss how to log into the system and how to manage the users. So let's look at the screen. Alright, before we log in, I just want to make you aware of where do we find the shoreware. The shoreware director is actually a web page, and that web page is located basically on the server. So if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see the IP address of the server. In this case, it's 10.10.2.1, and then it's shoreware director. So in your browser, you're going to type that entry of the shoreware IP address and the server. So I've done that, and you see I get to this page. Now, each one of you will have a login, and that login will be based on your individual user ID. And in this case, we're going to be using the default, which is admin. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. And then the password, which is change me. So the default system always comes with that password. So we're logging in now. And that didn't work because I typed it wrong. So now I got to do it again. Okay, so now we're in the ShoreTel system. And we're in the administration section. In that section, we're going to go ahead and cover just the users. So if we start there, I'm going to click on individual users. And now you can see we have a few users built in the system. And we're just going to pick on one user. Let's look at John Smith here. And we'll go through all the options within the user page. So you can see here at the top of the page we have the first and last name, the extension number. The next field is the license type. There are basically three types of licenses on the ShoreTel. One is extension, one is a mailbox, and the other one is extension and mailbox. The typical license will be an extension and mailbox license. Extension only licenses could cover a fax machine, a modem, any kind of analog device. And the mailbox only would be like an external user that doesn't technically have a phone but really wants to have the ability to leave and take messages. The next field down we have is the caller ID field. Now that caller ID would be the caller ID or the phone number that is sent every time this particular person makes a phone call. That could be the main number, or it can be their personal DID number if they have a DID number. And you can see the format here is +1, the area code, the phone number, and the prefix. So you must put it in that format. So to add a caller ID, I'll show you here. I'm just going to hit +1. And then I'm going to put in the area code. Then I'm going to put in the phone number. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit save at the top. And now you can see that caller ID is now placed there. So every time this particular person, John Smith, at extension 103, places a call, this is the caller ID that's going to be sent out. Now the field right below that is the DID range, which is if he has a direct number, there's going to be a range of numbers. You can see here we have 277, 1100, and basically through 1199. And you see John is extension 103, so I'm going to match that number to his extension. So I'm going to put in 1103. And now he has an inbound calling number, a DID number, that's going to ring at his desk, and that would allow him to receive that call directly without having to go through the operator or go through your auto attendant. The next field down here is Pstn Failover. That basically means if for some reason the network connection is down between two sites, you'd have to have two ShoreTel systems talking to each other. You have the ability to either forward to an external number, which could be a main number, and you would put in the number here in this field, or you could forward it straight to that specific person's DID number, which is that number right above there. That would allow that call to not go through let's say the MPLS network or the network designed to tie the two systems together, but it would go actually through the phone company and call in on their desk on that particular number. The last field in the first section is the user group, which we'll discuss a little bit later, but you'll notice there are multiple options for these. These are templates. This is how we set what permissions the particular person has on the system. So we'll cover those in a later lesson, actually in this lesson a little bit later. And then we're gonna go ahead and move on down to the screen into the second section. Now the second section here is very simple. The first one is what site or what location is the person going to be living? Where is their phone physically located? In this case, it's headquarters because it's the main site, but it could be a remote site. So you just do the pull down and you would pick the site there if there was another site. Now the next field down is the home port. Now the home port is basically where the phone always resides. So if someone were to go and log into another phone, then that would come down to this current port field here. But you can see the current port field is grayed out because they're at the home port or they're at the phone that they normally would be working at. This is also where you could change the IP address, actually, the MAC address of the telephone to be a different phone if that phone, for instance, was broken or was going to be switched to a different type. You would pick the MAC address, you'd get that off the back of the phone, and you would then put that new number in there, and that phone would now become this particular person's phone. Now the last field here is the jack number. That's more of a location. It's got two options. One of them is if you just want to document maybe on the patch panel which jack number, what port number that person is on the patch panel, that way you could reference them in your wiring diagrams. Or two, if you're having E911 service, this is where the system you would actually put the location, maybe conference room, second floor. And that would allow that person to know that if this E911 went off, it would show the exact location or room number of the person in that E911. Now the next field down we're going to talk about is just voicemail, and this is pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot of options here. Where is the voicemail server? Typically it's the headquarters server. That's the name of this particular server here. If you have a distributed voicemail server or DVM, it could be that server if you're on a remote site, so that would be chosen after the users are installed. Then do we accept broadcast messages? Are we going to include them in the directory? That's the voicemail directory, the auto attendant directory. And the third option is make number private. If we use the make number private option, that is going to remove them from all listings in the ShoreTel system, including the phones and the call manager. So just a note, if for some reason someone is trying to type a name and it never shows up in the call manager or it doesn't show up on the phone, it's probably because they've been marked private. So you'd have to uncheck that in order to call that specific number. The fax support, we don't really change that very often. It's just if we're using a fax server, it's letting them know those specific ports. And then video calls, that is referencing a feature that you would have to purchase. So most of these here you wouldn't have to change, except maybe the use of a soft phone if you've purchased a soft phone, or if you've purchased the mobile call manager software. Again, those are licensed features. If you turn them on, you must have a valid license, or you can't use those. The next field down is a ring down. If you're familiar with ring downs, that's the ability, if I go off hook, where would the phone would ring automatically to an individual. That's usually used in a door phone environment. You probably don't see that very often. And then the next field down we see is the user ID. Now that user ID is the ID for the person when they log into their call manager, as well as that is the ID you would use for your administration. So in this case it's M. Jones. So if I was going to log into the Shore Director to do some changes on the web page, you have to use first initial last name and then the password that you assign here. So that password and username is your admin password and username. You'll notice there's also a SIP password if we're using a SIP device, and you'll see the voicemail passwords right in the middle there, and you have the option to make sure that they change it the next time they log in. So if someone were to leave or forget their password, you can put in like say 1234 and then say user must change it the next time they log in. They would then go ahead and rechange that password back to whatever personal password they'd like, any 4 digits they would choose. Email address is pretty straightforward, and then conference bridge. That's if you buy an external conference bridge, that's a separate server that ShoreTel supplies, then you would have that information to set that up. And that's pretty much everything here that we have in the first of the personal user. Now we will go to the personal options next, but I want to go ahead and save that so we can stop.